Roger Stone. We go back to the Stone Zone with Donald Trump insider and veteran of 9 presidential campaigns, the Stone Man himself. Roger, welcome back.
Delighted to be here.
Roger, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You heard Kellyanne Conway herself yesterday. She was on Meet the Press with Chuck Todd, and in fact, let's let you react to what she said on Meet the Press yesterday.
Where do you see this race right now? Do you acknowledge that you're behind?
We are behind.
Roger, is Donald Trump behind, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think he's slightly behind. I think that you have an extremely volatile electorate. You still have a close race, and you still have, 15 days? 15 days in American politics is an eternity. On the other hand, I think the candidate has made a few errors in the last couple days that have been slightly damaging. And frankly, his campaign continues to disappoint. How does Kellyanne have time to be on Meet the Press and also be the campaign manager? I can't quite figure that out.
Interesting. Little signs of some infighting there. Roger, what was the biggest mistake you think Trump made over the weekend that you said was distracting from his message?
Well, I wish he had been a little more specific about respecting the outcome of the election. This is really simple. I'll respect the outcome of the election as long as I'm convinced that it is fair and honestly conducted. Let me expand on that. The U.S. government's international policy through our State Department on foreign elections is that exit polls and the final results must be within 2%, or we don't recognize the election. All we want here is the same standard. So Trump isn't saying he will not support and acknowledge the outcome of the election. If he loses, he needs to say, I'll support the outcome as long as I'm convinced that there is not substantial evidence of fraud and voter manipulation. We here in South Florida, particularly in Miami-Dade, we know a lot about voter fraud and manipulation, particularly in the area of absentee ballots. So the idea that Barack Obama tells us that voter fraud does not exist, no one in South Florida believes that. And, of course, I've written about and talked about the easy manipulation of these computerized machines. So I really think he needed to qualify that. You can't just not win and say, okay, it was rigged because I didn't win. You have to have solid evidence. Hillary Clinton's own standards at the State Department are good enough for me. The exit polls and the final results need to be within 2%. If they're not, then this was a stolen election, and Trump shouldn't acknowledge it.
All right, we're talking to Trump campaign insider Roger Stone. If you're a Trump supporter and you're looking at the ledge and you're saying, I just can't envision 4 more years of the Democrats in power, give Roger a call. Let's see if he can walk you down off that ledge, maybe give you some hope and encouragement for hope and change at 866-610-6397. Again, that number is 866-610-6397 if you want to talk to Roger Stone. But Roger, we had you on a little bit ago, and you hinted very strongly that the mother lode was coming in terms of the WikiLeaks revelations and that they were going to be devastating to the Clinton candidacy. Roger, I ask you, with a little bit more than 2 weeks, it's exactly 15 days until the election. Have we seen the mother lode, or do you expect more to come from WikiLeaks?
I expect more to come. Of course, an October surprise is not a surprise if everybody knows about it in advance. So I think you'll still have revelations from WikiLeaks and perhaps other places that still have the potential to roil this race. As they say, it's not over till it's over.
But, Roger, when you hinted at in the past that you were described, I know you didn't have a chance to see him. You said you were very clear on that, but you said it was described to you. Has what's come out already fit the description of what those devastating WikiLeaks revelations that were described to you, or not as of yet?
I guess I'd have to say some of the material that has been released already has been fairly devastating. Now, there is a secondary question, and that is, will the mainstream media cover this? It's amazing to me, given what's come out of Mr. Podesta's emails already, that NBC, for example, has dedicated exactly one sentence to the cover of this. I think that's called a media blackout. Same kind of media blackout you've had, for example, on the question of Bill Clinton's history as a serial rapist. And that's why I had to go create the iconic rape T-shirt and offer people rewards to be seen on TV to break through the media blackout. You do have a secondary question. I think you'll have devastating information. Here's the irony. WikiLeaks has said that they're going to release material for 10 weeks. Mark my words, the information they released after the election, particularly if Hillary Clinton wins, will get far more coverage than any of the information that they release before the election.
All right. Well, Roger, let's talk about this. I mean, without getting into specifics, without getting into details, what do you describe to me? Give me a scenario. What does a devastating type of subject matter look like? What are we talking about? I mean, is it red-handed smoking guns?
War with Russia, the war with Russia that is surely coming over Syria, where we have no inherent interest. Surveillance in the United States. Who knows, Fernand? They may be surveilling you, but you don't know. Oil, voter manipulation, internet manipulation, all those things in terms of broad categories are what I think is in store. But as I've made very clear yesterday on CBS 4 here and in other interviews, I don't have advanced knowledge of exactly what they intend to release, other than in broad categories that I just raised. I don't work for the Russians, although I do enjoy their vodka, and I don't think Assange does either. And those intelligence community professionals who all say that the Russians are going to hack our election, every one of them is a political appointee, and the Republicans on the House and Senate Intelligence Committee, who are fully qualified to see classified information, have seen no proof whatsoever, because there is no proof. None.
Well, Roger, John Podesta, who is the Clinton campaign chairman, not only has implied and suggested there's proof, he says you are the one to blame, that you are the mastermind behind this whole thing. Let's listen to what John Podesta said, Roger, and then get your reaction to it.
With those individuals. Around the same time, Stone pointed his finger at me and said that I could expect some treatment that would kind of expose me, and ultimately sent out a tweet that said it would be my time in the barrel. If you want to go back and check that. That was in August.
It was like middle August, early August, like the 11th, around that.
So I think it's a reasonable assumption or at least a reasonable conclusion, that Mr. Stone had advance warning in the Trump campaign, had advance warning about what Assange was going to do.
Roger, did you have advance warning about Julian Assange's WikiLeaks, as John Podesta says you did?
No, actually, he was very careful to. He said assumption and conclusion, reasonable assumption and conclusion. That's because his lawyers told him to say that, because they know he doesn't want to be sued the way I'm going to be suing Congressman Elijah Cummings today. He flatly said, I knew the congressman is going to be sued in federal court over that slur, over that defamation, because he said it off the floor. Therefore, he doesn't have congressional immunity, and I'll see the congressman in court. I had no advance knowledge. I've said this repeatedly. At least Congressman Nadler, another scumbag, and Podesta worded their assertion carefully to avoid lawsuit. Cummings, often called the dumbest member of Congress, did not do so, and therefore he is going to have to pay for that in a federal court of law.
All right, we got to go to a quick break. We're going to come back with Roger Stone. We stay inside the Stone zone. Roger, we're going to ask him his prediction on what's going to happen on November 8th, and more of your calls at 866-610-6397 when we come back with Trump insider Roger Stone.
News Radio 610.
Fernand Amandi back on News Radio 610 WIOD as we continue to go into the deep, dark heart of the Stone Zone, where we get Roger Stone, Trump campaign insider, giving us his take on how he sees campaign 2016. And Roger, one of the other elements I have to ask you about, because we're now past the presidential debates. The debates are over. 3 of them were on schedule. 3 of them happened. Was there anything that suggested to you, as some folks in the Trump campaign were implying, about Hillary Clinton's health, the state of her medical condition? She seemed to have gotten through all 3 of those without a problem. Are you willing to suggest now that she's not in as bad a place as some folks on the Trump campaign suggested?
No, actually, I think they had her hopped up on drugs for all three debates. Let me ask you a question, though. Why in the final debate did we use a different camera lens for Hillary than Trump? Why did we use a softer lens? Why did the network do that?
You know, I didn't.
Or was that media bias?
I didn't. Is that Scotty's telling me that happened?
Stone cold fact. That is a stone cold fact.
You know, that I think that begs some questions, Roger. We also saw.
Why was she allowed to cheat on her podium using essentially a minor teleprompter? I mean, the cheating in this campaign has been unlike anything I've seen in 9 campaigns.
Roger, what has been the most egregious example of cheating from your perspective? What's the most egregious?
The country will remain bitterly divided, and her ability to govern will be almost non-existent. In fact, I go a step further. Her ability to appear in public, any place in the country, without a massive protest, unlike other previous newly elected presidents, will be something to behold.
Roger, what's been, in your opinion, the most egregious example of cheating in this campaign thus far?
Well, let's see. Donna Brazile giving her questions in advance. That would be one. Clearly the issues surrounding her podium. That would be 2. The different lens used, as I just mentioned. All those are pretty egregious. So it is. It's the last dying gasp. I think it's the last election in which the old-style mainstream media will have this kind of ability because they're waning. Their ratings are dropping. Their profitability is dropping. Enjoy CBS, ABC, and NBC while you can, because I don't even think they'll be in business, at least not doing broadcast television, at the time of the next national presidential election, if we have one.
All right, let's go to the phones at 866-610-6397. If you want to talk to Roger Stone, let's kick it off with Alex. Alex, you're on with Roger Stone.
Yeah, Roger, I have a question for you. You said earlier, you alluded to the fact that why is Kellyanne Conway have time to be on CBS during this period? Doesn't that concern you from the beginning of the campaign, how Trump has just been incapable of putting together a team that even agrees when they get interviewed? I mean, isn't that going to be indicative of his inability to put together a winning team as a cabinet or anything like that?
Well, politics and business, in his view, are different. I actually think they're very much the same, but in his view, they're different. At the end of the day, this is his campaign. If he wins, all credit should go to him. If he loses, in all candor, all blame should go to him. He is less reliant on staff than anybody I've ever worked for. He makes his own decisions. That worked extremely well for him in the primaries. It remains to be seen how this election works out. But at the end of the day, if you go back and look at all of the alleged gaffes that he has made, every one of them would have been perfectly serviceable with a few more words. In other words, as I discussed, I would strongly urge him not to blindly accept the results of the elections until there's evidence that they have been fairly and honestly conducted. We here in South Florida understand voter fraud, and we laugh when the president says it doesn't exist. Now, maybe the elections will be honestly and fairly conducted, and therefore, if he loses, and I think that's still an open question, but if he loses, and there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud and, more importantly, voter manipulation and machine manipulation, he should accept the results. You cannot just lose and say, well, I lost and therefore it was rigged. You have to have solid, specific evidence. That's why I've been working with StopTheSteal.org for a comprehensive set of exit polling in key precincts in key states and key counties across the country so we can determine whether we've had an honest election or not. I would preserve my options, but I would explain to the voters why I'm preserving my options.
Roger, let's go back to the phones. We've got Chris on the line. Chris, you're on with Roger Stone. Chris going once. Sounds like Chris is gone. How about Jim? Jim, you're on the line with Roger Stone.
God, it's the year of the dropout.
It is the year of the drop. Chris Blesser, is Jim on? Jim, are you there? You're on with Roger, Jim. Jim, you got to speak. Sounds like Jim is gone. All right, let's try Martha. Let's see the third time's a charm.
Who arranged this morning's calls? David Brock?
Or maybe Mr. Putin himself. Who knows? Martha, hey, you're on the air, Martin.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Mr. Stone. Good morning, Amandi.
Good morning.
I'm a Trump supporter, and I have a comment regarding the tape that you put from Mr. Obama saying that Marco Rubio is now voting, endorsing Trump. What about Michelle Obama when she was wanting for her husband, and she said, if she can't even run her own house, how can she run the White House? Isn't that the same thing? I mean, and she's endorsing Clinton now. Isn't that the same thing as Marco Rubio is doing? Isn't it all politics in the end?
I would say yes. I mean, I frankly, I was a little disappointed the Trump campaign has not made better use of the Obama's previous criticism of the Clintons. Let's be very clear. Barack Obama and his wife despise Bill and Hillary Clinton. They're only doing their party duty, and that's about it. I would refer you to Ed Klein's excellent books on this subject. But yeah, people change their position in politics for essentially political reasons, and we've seen it in both parties.
All right, let's go to Jeff. Jeff, you're on with Roger Stone.
Amandi, great show. I'd just like to bring into effect what I just heard about the 2% within the exit polling. There was a report I'd heard actually at the end of last week that the Trump campaign was going to actually have their own exit polling themselves and do their own sort of stuffing the exit polls and use that exit poll and thus make a greater range. It's funny that Mr. Stone has brought this up. Does he have any knowledge of what they're going to be doing with this exit poll themselves?
I actually think that's incorrect. I understood that they were going to be putting all their time and effort into poll watching. That is, looking for voter fraud in the more traditional poll watching sense. The only exit poll that I'm aware of is the one being conducted by StopTheSteal.org, in which I am involved, and it will be scientifically conducted, and it will be at specific polling places, not based on minority population, as has been incorrectly reported, but based on one-party rule. You see, the place you have abuse is when one party controls top to bottom the process, state, county, and local. That's where I think the irregularities take place. And if the exit polls show that the swing, when comparing the exit poll to the specific reported results, is within 2%, then nothing will come of it. If, on the other hand, it shows that the swing is wider than that, yeah, it could be the basis on which to challenge the next election in court.
All right, we've got less
or in
than
the court of public opinion.
We've got less than a minute left. Let's go with Rick, and then I want to ask you a question. Rick, you're on with Roger Stone. Make it quick.
Thank you, Roger. Listen, Roger, this really concerns me about this. Why is every terrorist attacker upon the United States and Americans of all races, color, and creed a Hillary Clinton supporter? And why is the media not putting that out there and doing their research to say, look at this Macy shooter? They all have it in history that they're supporting Hillary Clinton.
Well, it's not something I can address in less than a minute, but it is certainly something that I'd like to see greater coverage of. I haven't done the basic research to ensure that every terrorist who attacked the country is a Hillary supporter. I don't know that to be true, although I don't think any of them are conservative Republicans, let's put it that way.
Roger, we'll have this conversation in a week, but do you still anticipate Donald Trump will be, according to the public opinion polls, behind this time next Monday, or do you see a move happening as we speak?
I think there's every possibility that late momentum could be with him, and I still think we have events to potentially affect this race. One other thing, Fernand, it was great to see you yesterday at CBS yesterday, and you were very good on air, but you need to get a haircut. You're starting to look like one of the members of the Partridge Family.
Hey, it worked for me. It's worked for you, and I think a lot of jealousy out there because I still got my Samson locks. But thanks for participating. As always, Roger Stone.